Hello there, and a huge welcome to today's episode of Gina Gardiner and Friends. Today I'm joined by Rebecca Skeele. Now, Rebecca's got a remarkable background. She is a wisdom teacher and a spiritual mentor of 30 years' experience. She's an author. She has two master's degrees and is about to get her doctorate in spiritual science. And wow, we're going to have a great conversation about sacred callings.
Mm.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Gina, for having me.
Before we get started on sacred callings, I'd be really grateful if you'd share your journey with people because it's not your average sort of job, is it, that you do?
No, it's not. No, it's not. And I love that question. Thank you for asking it. I would say it, if I dial it back to my 30s, there was a lot of upheaval going on in my life. I call it the two by fours of life. We all have had them, and we all know when I say that, we all know what they are. And I had several of them. And at that time, my perfect, beautiful life with the husband and the children and lots of abundance came crashing down. And I really felt like it was time to find out what else is going on here because I had experienced so much of what most of us think is the dream of life, and it wasn't doing it. And so it put me on a journey, and the journey really had to do with uh, what I call soul directives. Now, at that time, I was not that much into the soul or a divine blueprint or anything like that, which is one of the things I talk about and teach. But, my soul just guided me to a particular training, a workshop, a person, an experience. And with that, I began to wake up to what else is going on. And what I would say if there was one thing that resonated the most with me in all those years was the heart opening. It was for me what opened up everything else. So any spiritual gift I might have, any blessing that I might be able to bestow on someone, any wisdom that I carry has everything to do with opening the heart. And of course, at that time, if you'd said, "Oh, Rebecca, you need to open your heart," I would have said, no, I know what heart is. I mean, I know what loving is, but it's like, no, I didn't. So that's what put me on the journey, and that was late 30s, and that was about 40 years ago. And since then, it's just unfolded organically as I like to say, spirit meets you at your point of action. So I just began to take action. And here we are, many years later, and talking about this on your radio show.
You know, one of the things that strikes me, you talked about the 4x2 moments in life. And so often, and I know with from my own clients, from my own life, that we get sort of whispers from the universe or God, call I don't well, whoever you call the
Mhm,
divine force,
mhm.
and then it's a little nudge, and then it's a little bit of a poke, and then it's a slap, and then it's a kick up the bottom, and then they knock you off your perch until you listen. And if you can learn to listen before it gets to the 4x2 around the head, then life would be a lot more comfortable. But sadly, as human beings, we don't. Why is it, do you think, that we have to have something so dramatic that takes us to a point where we recognize that even though we've got the trappings of success, that's not enough? And I know that was the situation for you.
Mhm, mhm. I'll give you my opinion because the world is very seductive.
Okay. You
There's a
want,
lot of there's a lot of illusion here,
okay.
and we get seduced by the illusion. So the illusion of money and the illusion of fame and the illusion of success and the illusion of abundance and the illusion of happily ever after. And I did them all. I I got a really good life degree and all of that. And it's very seductive and it's very blinding. And yet, I believe that we also have a blueprint that we came in with. That when we are ready, and a lot of times we're ready when our life is on pieces on the floor, that we start to say, okay, what else is here? and we begin to break those illusions and look beyond what has seduced me up until then and going, that doesn't do it. I've already done that. That doesn't do it. And I think we have to have that experience. So we burst the illusion for ourselves.
I think much of the illusion is about around our conditioning,
Yes.
our blueprint of success, which is different to our, I believe, our divine blueprint, that, how we think life should be,
Mhm.
is very much determined by our parents, our teachers, society, and these success norms. I'll be happy when, and we give a whole string of criteria, don't we, that all got to be
Yes.
in place in order
Yes.
for us to be happy, rather than I'm going to choose to be happy and make that active choice that you can be happy even when there are challenging things happening in your life. You don't have to be happy about the challenging things necessarily, although that's an opportunity to grow. But you can be happy about the sun is shining, or you've got a lovely cup of tea, or a hot shower, or whatever it is. And in that moment, be really contented and happy about what's going on in that time.
Mhm. I agree. And, the other thing is that we really must take a look at what do we truly want. There was a training that I was in my mid 30s. That was one of the first trainings, workshops, one of those. They were very popular back in the day, and there was 250 people in the room, and we were all going through these transformational experiences. And one of the questions, and this was like on day 5 of a 7-day training, something like that, was, what do you want? Well, it seems like a very simple question, but
Oh,
no. And what I realized in that training was I was standing on a chair, which was a no-no, but I was standing on a chair screaming, I want to love.
interesting.
So it wasn't, I want to be loved. I want to love. And at that moment, my life shifted.
I'm interested that I want to love.
Mhm.
Were you talking about I want to love me or I want to love others?
I want to be who I really truly am. See, I believe we are all love.
I agree.
Yeah. So I want to love meant I want to live who I am.
Okay.
I know that now. At the time, I didn't know what it meant.
And interesting from that standing on that chair on the 5th day of that course, you talked then about needing to open your heart. And I truly agree that if we live from our heart and live from a place of authenticity,
Mhm.
to be truly who we are, that life shifts and becomes so much richer. What was the process that you had to go through in order for your heart to begin to open in the way that you needed it to?
Well, part of it was to let go of all the conditioning. You mentioned that word, excellent word, of what I thought was love, and all of the ways in which we defend ourselves against love. And loving is who we are, it's the divineness of who we are. And yet, most of us, I'll just talk about me, were raised in a very typical middle class American family where there was dysfunctionality, and who I was, the loving of who I was not celebrated. It wasn't honored. It wasn't, whatever. I had to fit into a mold, like most of us did, to survive, to get along. And yet, so that the heart, the loving, the divineness of who we are gets, the analogy I like to use is that there's a cluttered closet, and cluttered closets, you open the door and everything comes falling out, and in the back of the closet is who we truly are. But all this clutter has disappointments and hurts and expectations and attachments and abandonment and rejection and all of this stuff that we've accumulated inside. It creates a barrier around our heart, so we have to let go of all that, and that is a process. It is a process, and I believe it is a courageous process,
Mhm.
and one that I've been working with people for over 30 years. It's like I've loved walking with someone side by side when they are going through that process, because it takes a courage, and when we can walk with someone else that has maybe been a few steps ahead, it's really lovely to have that support, to have that reflection, to have that encouragement to say it's okay. It's okay. And one of the main teaching that I work with, my client said to me yesterday, I'm gonna have a t-shirt made with that on it, is you don't need fixing, you need loving.
Hmm.
So many of us for many, many years, and also the self-help pop psychology for 30, 40 years was all about how to fix it, how to fix yourself. You don't need fixing. You need to learn how to love all parts of yourself.
I think that's so true. And I think one of the challenges that we have in terms of learning to love who we are is recognizing that we are enough and that we compare ourselves. I think comparisonitis is like
Mhm.
Ebola. It's so toxic because we're often comparing ourselves with an illusion, with a mask. You talked about illusions earlier. And the reality is that, you know, we are perfect in our imperfections, aren't we? That
Yes.
life is an opportunity to learn. And our best version, I say this on the show so often. So I'm not making any apology for that because I think it's so important that, the best version of us today is simply the foundation for the best version of us tomorrow and next week and so on. But I think we are so conditioned that we have to be a particular shape. We have to do this, that, or the other, because that's when we get other people's so-called love. But that love is conditional very often.
Mhm.
I'll
Yes, it is.
love you if you give me what I want. I'll love you if you give me the attention or you stop doing that. But if
Mhm.
you don't do that, I will withdraw my love. I will withdraw um, how I am serving or your needs. And I think many people fear that being left alone emotionally. And so they comply with what other people want from them, even though it's not in their best interest and it's not truly who they are.
I agree 100%.
So, what advice would you give to people who are perhaps just newly aware of being on their journey to opening their heart? Because it can seem daunting.
Mhm.
How can people start that journey? What for you, what are the first couple of steps?
Well, there's several ways that I would answer that question, depending on who one is, who you are, and how open you are to support. A lot of times we don't realize that we need support,
Mhm.
and we kind of have to, be the individual that's doing it. No, it's okay. I can figure all this out. Well, no, you can't. And so finding support, and that can be in lots of different ways. It can be a group that you find, it can be a group of people that seem to be like-hearted and that are going, it can be a professional. There's lots of books out there. There are a lot of online things now that you can do. So finding support, I think, is really crucial. And the other thing I would say is let go, because we hold on to so much ways that we think life should be and how I should, and this is how it's supposed to be, and you got to let go. You got to walk into the unknown. You have to embrace the mystery. You have to really know that you are being guided, and of course that's the other thing of it, is as we open up to who we open up more to who we are beyond the five sense reality. We are so much more than this five sense reality, and we open up to the multidimensional reality of who we are, and that gets into God, Goddess, all that is, or whatever you call source, and the being of why we are here.
For many people, I think that the recognizing that we are more than we ever think that we are is something that they struggle with. Their sense of self-worth is determined by their bank balance or how big their car is or how long their work title is
Mhm.
or how much they do for other people rather than for being who they are.
Mhm.
And I think, when you look at the huge explosion of mental ill health that there is, it seems to me that more than any time in certainly in my living memory, that we have people who are living the mask and not the reality of themselves. And that disconnect to themselves is creating all sorts of mental health and physical disease too.
Mhm. Knowing that we have a choice is also, I think, in there, Gina. Many of us, when we're in the middle of whatever the disturbance is, the chaos, the upheaval, the hurt, uh, don't realize that we have a choice. I think that's one of the eureka days when we realize, oh my God, I have a choice here. I can do something. I can do something about this. I can make another choice. And then we have to know what that choice is. So that's why I circle back to support. Because if we're in a situation with someone who has been several steps down the road in front of you, they can assist you in saying, let's take a look at another possibility here.
I think that's incredibly wise advice. Everything we do is a choice. Even not choosing is a choice, and every choice has consequences. I know you know that, but often it's when we let things drift that the consequences are most far-reaching. We're going to go to a short break now, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about sacred callings, because I think when you know what your sacred calling is, then life changes exponentially. So please don't go away. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. So, sacred callings.
Mhm.
Could you define them for us? Because I think before we get started in the conversation, it's really helpful that we're all sort of singing on the same page.
Sure. My definition of calling is the first calling is to find out who we are and to live who we are. And I believe that when we do that, when I do that, when you do that, we bring a blessing. We bless ourselves and we bless others. So a calling is another way of talking about is heart and soul. It is the essence of who we are. It's in our DNA. It is not something we put on like medicine or counseling or health, mentoring or anything like that. It really is in the DNA of who we are. And when my experience has been when people really get clear of what the calling is, when I got really clear what the calling was, and it was a life-changing experience. And I think you said that right before break. It was like it resonated throughout my whole body. In fact, I had a complete somatic experience. My body shook, my palms got very clammy. Tears were rolling down my face. I mean, I just went, whoa, it's like you plugged me into something. And I had no idea that it was going to be that revolution with transformation. I mean, whatever word you want to put on it. And so when I work with people, when I start teaching about this, it's like, someone will come to me and they'll go, well, I've done this and I've done that. And right now I want to do this and I want to do that. And they're perfectly capable of doing all that. They're not having problems with that. But then I said, well, okay, wonderful. Well, let's back up here. I said, are you feeling a bit overwhelmed? Yes. Are you feeling a bit scattered? Yes. Are you feeling a bit, like, oh, okay, here we go again? Yes. I said, let's find out what the calling is of you with you. And then let's hold up those things and see if it's a match. And when it's a match, it really brings a blessing. So, the book I wrote on this is called Manifest Your Sacred Ambition, Summon Your Heart's Calling into Bold, Loving Action. So to me, when we know what the calling is, then we can decide whether or not it's a form for the world. And it's not always. Some people are called into being, the best they can be in their marriage, in their partnership, as a mother, as a father. In other words, it's who they are, how they want to show up. and it's not always a form. If it is a form, though, then we get into our ambition and power, and that's it's a whole another level to this.
So let's stick with this level for a moment.
Okay,
We'll go further
sure,
further
sure.
on. Very often people that I speak to, whether that's as clients or just having general conversations with people, that people have there's a sense that I'm here to do something, but I don't know what it is. And I can't identify what call it my destiny, my purpose, my calling, and that they're struggling to identify what that might be. How do you help people to identify that their calling?
Well, like I said, callings are essence.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you an example of my calling. My calling is heaven on earth.
Okay.
Now, that is an essence to me. That is in my DNA. The experience of an inner heaven is who I am. And I didn't realize it was a calling. I just knew how to assist people in finding their inner heaven because that was my first book. So it wasn't until I began to talk about it and put words on it at such a deep level, I was actually teaching a class at that time, that I had the experience that I shared. So now I know that my calling is heaven. So when I am looking at coming forth to do a podcast or write another book or do a talk or workshop, I hold that up and see, does this fit
Hmm.
in the heaven of who I am? And if it is, then I go forward with it. And if it's not, because we're drawn to do things from all kinds of parts of ourself. Our ego personality is one of the big ones. And if it's just going to be about my ego, I go, well, it's not going to be as fulfilling. Because, see, I believe we've really come in this lifetime. You talk about a purpose, you talk about a destiny, you talk about to fulfill who we are.
Yeah.
That's everybody's purpose, to fulfill who you are. Well, who are you? And that's when we get to the calling.
So there are millions of people listening to this show in all sorts of circumstances, some who are perhaps living their heaven on earth, but many people, I suspect, are listening to this and saying, I'm worried about money, my relationship's going wrong, I'm in a job I hate, and I'm supposed to, find my calling, and I
Mhm.
can't find my way. My mum used to talk about not being able to fight your way out of a paper bag, you know.
Yes.
And I think for many people, they are in total overwhelm that
Mhm.
they don't know how to manage to find something outside their current existence. They know they want something different. They know this isn't heaven on earth, and they feel that it's a possibility, but they have no idea of how to start. What advice have you got for them?
I love that question, and yet it's really wow. It's as individual and unique as every person is, but I'll give it my best shot. If
Thank
you were to call me up and say, Rebecca, I want you to help me find my heaven, where I would start is tell me about your hell,
Okay.
because within our hell, and we all know what that means, what the circumstances we're in, exactly what you just articulated and described. Within the hell is the way out.
Yeah.
Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that within the hell is the limiting beliefs, the shame, the blame, the judgment, the wounds from the past.
Mhm.
So that's where you have to start. Back to that cluttered closet. See, that's all that clutter. It's
Mhm.
like you have to be in to let that go, to heal it. And I teach self mastery, which is forgiveness and acceptance and self compassion. It's like once we begin to work these tools, and they are spiritual tools, we begin to clear away the old draw us, the old clutter that doesn't, we learn how to let go. We learn how to have compassion for ourselves. We learn to let go of those voices that we bought into when we were children. And we learn to say, no, that's not me. We learn to make different choices. We learn to open up to what else is going on, just everything I've been talking about. So
Yeah.
that's where I start. So, and I don't say to people, oh, okay, we're going to find your heaven. I leave it up to their soul, because if it's really in their divine blueprint to shift their life and to begin to live the life that really resonates with them and let go of everything that doesn't serve, all I have to do is be a way shower. All I have to do is say, let's look over here, because spirit, soul is going to do the work.
Mhm. You know, being brave enough to actually look at your life and identify what is it in my life that I like, that's what I want to protect, and particularly if I love it, what are the areas of my life that I am unhappy with, that are not serving me, that don't fill me with joy, that I feel like pushing a bus uphill and the bus has got no engine. Being prepared to unpack that closet piece by piece, and you don't have to do it all in one fell swoop, do you? But
Mhm.
being prepared to examine each piece. Is it serving me? um, whose stuff is it? 'Cause so often, I don't know about with the clients that you work with, but so often the stuff that's in the closet doesn't belong to them. It belongs completely to somebody else and their expectations of how you should be rather than who you really are. And I think that, if you're listening to this, just choose one thing to work on, because just by working on that one thing, you will start to move the log jam, won't you? And that
Yes.
if you do that, that will then give you the recognition that you can then manage the next piece and the next piece and the next piece.
Excellent. I love that.
You wouldn't eat a
Yeah.
cow in one sitting, or if you're a vegetarian, a whole field of corn in one lot. But mouthful by mouthful, it's palatable. And I think when you're unpacking these challenging things in your life, make it manageable, put it into small chunks, and then you'll
Absolutely.
start to see the progress, won't you?
Hmm. Absolutely. And, I do an exercise called giving back the hand-me-downs. You were talking about a lot of what we carry around is not ours. Let's take an example of perfection. Perhaps you were raised by a mother or a father that wanted you to be perfect.
Hmm.
And so you did whatever you could to please them and to be perfect. And of course, had a lot of fear about not being perfect,
Yeah.
right? So just taking that one piece and realizing that it was not yours. You didn't come in with an edict that you were supposed to be perfect. It was put on you by a mother or father, probably well-meaning, but not aligned with who you are. So we start giving things back like that. We start giving back those voices. We start giving back those judgments of shame and blame. We start giving back that fear, that vibration of fear that you found in your family because it was like, uh-oh, things aren't perfect. Uh-oh, and we know it. We pick it up. And there are aspects of ourself that pick it up. So we work with those aspects of ourself. And little by little, as you said, step by step, it begins to dissipate. We've if it was if it was charged at a 10 from a 1 to 10, it's now charged at a 2.
Yes.
So we can give it back and we can free ourselves from that fear of not being perfect and realize, like you said, that we are perfectly imperfect. And that is enough.
Yes. I think the when that realization becomes um, evident to you, that unlocks the door of possibilities. Because until you're prepared to let go of those things which are not serving you, you're imprisoned by those
Yes.
things.
Yes.
But once you, in my experience, again, personally and with many clients, is that once that first one is most difficult because it's so unfamiliar.
Mhm.
But once you're able to do that, then everything becomes lighter and easier as you go through. That's not to say they're always easy, but they become easier because you recognize that actually, if you're prepared to work at it, that you can. give the hand-me-downs to the charity shop or send them off to
Right.
into the tip if you're not going to serve anybody else. And in doing so, you free yourself from those fetters that keep you chained in a particular past that's not really who you are.
Yes, absolutely. I so agree. And the other image that's just popping up is another one I like to use with people because sometimes as you're speaking and as you are describing very accurately, people get, maybe they've been working with themselves for 3 months or 6 months, and it's like, God, there's so much here. How long is it going to take me? And like the analogy or the image I like to use is, well, imagine a whole set of dominoes set up. And one of these days you're going to hit the first domino and everything else is going to
All of
fall.
it goes. It does
And
indeed.
I really believe that, and I've seen it happen.
Me too. We're about to go to a short break, but when we come back, I'd like to take us to the next level once you've done the personal um, um, debris clearing, how you can take things to the next level. Because I think
Okay.
there are many of our listeners who have already started the self-development stuff and are
Mhm.
now really interested in finding their calling at a deeper level. So
Yes.
please don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. So, finding that deeper calling, Rebecca, how do people do that? What does that, how do you engage with that? Because it's very, well, is it different? But it's certainly on a different level to making that connection with yourself.
Yes. First thing that I really encourage people when they've discovered their calling and they're starting to own it,
Yes.
right, is to begin to listen. A lot of times we want to take that calling and go, okay, I found it. I found it. Let's go do something with it, and we rush out in the world and open up the storefront or make the business cards or throw up the website or whatever. And it's like, whoa, we follow callings. We do not lead them because the soul of the calling is going to emerge much like the butterfly from the chrysalis. So I use that analogy when I'm teaching this process that we really must be patient and listen. The other two things that I find, and this was very true for me, around callings, is that we want to play small and we want to hide.
Yes.
Because to live who we are will bring up everything. So, we've just talked about the cluttered closet. When you start living a calling, it's like, okay, we've moved into a whole nother playing field here because it's going to ask everything of us. And even things that we don't realize that we're blocking or we're unconscious about. And that playing small is like, oh, no, well, I mean, it took me 5 years after I had the aha moment that my calling was heaven. It took me 5 years to begin to have the courage to say things or present myself in a particular way that really was a reflection of my heaven because I was just like, oh, well, I don't know what to do with this. Heaven, are you kidding me? And it was an inner process of listening and being with and really letting it inform me and like go through the process of becoming the butterfly. Now, it doesn't have to take 5 years for everybody. I'm just giving you my experience. But we want to play small and we want to hide, and yet that is the process of coming out, and that has to do with power.
Mhm.
Now, when I used to run events and be on stage and have lots of people in the audience. And when I would ask them, okay, who wants to be seen as powerful? Maybe we'd have 5 hands go up
Mhm.
because power is not it's very off-putting. Most people go, oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to be powerful. I won't have any friends. People won't like me. They'll think I'm going to walk over them. I mean, all the baggage around power. It's like, well, hold on. We have personal power in the things called our vulnerability. There's power there. In our loving, there's power there. In our truth telling, there's power there. So, in other words, I would help redefine power for them so that they began to go, oh, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about the personal power of who we are. And when we begin to open up to that, then the calling is an expression of that. It's like, just like right now, I mean, I'm just being, I'm just expressing my heaven in the way that I see it, the way I experience it, and the way that I've taught it. And it takes me knowing who I am and the power of that to be able to do that. Otherwise, it falls flat. And believe me, I know when it does.
One of the things that strikes me in all of that is how many people believe that power is about having dominion over somebody else. And I talk a lot about genuine power. And I think when we're talking about our genuine, authentic, divine power, if you like, it's not about having dominion over other people at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because when, as a leader, for example, a lot of my work is around leadership, it
Mhm.
is about lead yourself first, know yourself, and engage with who you are authentically, genuinely. And then you will see the potential in other people and nurture that in a way that is fulsome and heartfelt, rather than I'm the more powerful person than you. That makes you a lesser person than me. And if you are in your genuine power, it's not about lesser or more than. It is about enabling, it's about facilitating people being the best version of them that they can be.
Yes, absolutely. And it's that I'm not going to say this quote well, because right now I can't remember all of it, but it is, the 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 ground of being that raises all boats.
Yes,
Now it's said a different, and you know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. Yeah, it's like we all rise together.
yes.
It's like that's what to me is the empowerment of who I am, who you are. It's like we all need to rise together. And that I know is part of my heaven. It's like that's what I do with people. I empower them. I inspire them. I support them. I say, come on, you can do this. And because I've done it. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it. And that is to me what the gift is when people really begin to live from their calling. It is the blessings that they just are just by standing in the grocery line, you know, waiting to check out your groceries, and somebody turns to you and goes, "Who are you?" Or, "I really like your green top." And really, it's a way to because they feel the energy of that, they feel the vibration of that, and they want to know who you are, or they feel the radiance of who you are, and that to me is the blessing of living one's calling.
I think moment by moment, we take every opportunity to choose, and sometimes that choice is not to choose. It's still a
Mhm.
choice. But I think when we're awakened, when we're conscious about the choices that we make moment by moment, and that we have chosen to live from a place of love, then I think that we act like a stone being thrown into a pond. There's the ripple goes out and continues to ripple long after we've actually left that space, because we have a knock-on effect on other people, whether it's at an energetic level. And many people will be familiar with, sometimes you spend time with people and after 20 minutes you feel like a limp rag because they've drained the very lifeblood out of you without doing or saying anything in particular, and
Mhm.
other people who you want to be with because they energize you and they make you feel good. I think for us, it's recognizing that we have the capacity to make a positive difference or a negative difference in every thought we have, and every belief, every word, every action, and that ultimately we can choose the living legacy we want to leave moment by moment. And it's doing that consciously that I think makes such a difference.
I so agree, and that was beautifully put. And there's so much. going on this planet right now that is supporting exactly what you were just articulating. And of course, I'm speaking of the astrological aspects. I'm not an astrologer, but I do follow it, and all the other energies and frequencies that are being bombarded, and I use that word on purpose, from the ethers beyond this planet. And all of that is, and I'm just talking out of my experience here, uh, all of that is impacting exactly what you were talking about. And I believe really what is going on. And the more that we consciously, using your word, consciously tune into that, the more we realize how much support is really here. And I call it light, the light of who we are,
Hmm.
the loving of we are, and it does come from source, whatever you want to call source. And when we tune into that and know how to do that and open our spiritual centers, and I'm going to say that, and that's another level of everything that I've been talking about here, as I know you know, and we open our spiritual centers, then we can access these frequencies, these vibrations, and hold them at a greater level, because we must be able to do that. And that it's about holding it. And the more we hold it, the more we are it. And then we go to the next level. The more we hold it, the more we are it. And that's probably not very good English, but you know what I mean.
I think for many people listening that perhaps the principles of energy are unfamiliar. There'll be other people where they're very familiar, but I think that ultimately that we talk about emotional intelligence, and that if we are feeling anger or hatred or jealousy, it's a lower frequency. If
Yes.
we are feeling forgiveness, joy, or love, it's a very high frequency. And I
Mhm.
think that ultimately, the more time we spend in these high frequency emotional states, the more we attract more of those things that give us even more reason to feel in those higher emotional states. Like attracts like. So if you are focusing on the lack and the difficulty in your life, you would seem to attract more of it. I suspect that it's because that's what you're looking for. And it's like having, you buy a new car and then suddenly you see lots of that model on the road, but you've never seen them before.
Mhm.
But they've always been there. You just haven't actually noticed them. And
Mhm.
so I think for people at so many levels, whether, whatever your belief or your religion, this is about time to recognize that we need to come from a place of love. Whether you're a business leader showing integrity, compassion, and courage to do what's right, whether you're a parent being less critical, but holding children to account, all of that, if it comes truly from a place of love, then it's going to have a positive impact, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you asked me a question earlier. I don't think I answered it very well, so I'm going to circle back to it because you said, what would be your advice for someone who's maybe just waking up to all this? There are so many techniques that are out there now that are readily available. You can go on YouTube and find a lot of them, or maybe you see a poster at the coffee shop and decide to go check it out. One of the simplest and yet most profound techniques that we can use to raise our vibration, and that's why I'm talking about, is breath work.
Hmm.
And it's like a radio dial, an old-fashioned radio dial, that you try to turn it, to get the station just
Yeah.
right without the static. So when I teach breath work in doing this, we start with, and we have to remember we're all of it. We're the lower vibration, we're the higher vibration, we're all of it, like the piano keys. It's like we're all of it. And yes, sometimes we're going to be hurt, our feelings are going to get hurt, or we're going to have a jealous moment and we're down in the lower vibration. Well, how do we pull ourselves out of that? Well, you take the radio dial and you're taught a particular breathing technique. It's not hard. And you begin to just imagine that I'm just going to turn it up just a minute, just a bit. And then you do the breathing and then you turn the radio dial up just a little bit more. And before you know it, you're raised out of whatever that was into a more expansive, a more accepting, a more forgiving, compassionate place. And it's like, wow, I didn't have to sit for 3 hours in a therapy session to get here. I said, no, you don't. It's like learning these techniques that begin to raise us up because this is who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's now more and more science that demonstrates that if you do, for example, box breathing, breathe in
Hmm.
4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, that we affect the vagus nerve, which they know
Yes.
affects the nervous system. We move from left brain thinking, which tends to be logical. It tends to be either or. It's where we catastrophize. And it moves us into right brain thinking, which is where we find our creativity and our solution finding.
Hmm.
So, you you and I know that it's the great thing to do because it actually raises your vibration and your connection with consciousness. But actually, the science in terms of how your brain works also reflects that something that appears to be as simple as a breathing technique, a breathing practice, can have a profound effect on your
Yes,
sense of possibility and your sense of well-being.
I agree. I agree. And it also takes us into a theta state. So that's the science that I know. And yes, the vagus nerve. And it's like, wow, we're wired for our divinity.
Yes,
We're wired for our heaven. And it's a matter of doing those techniques that work.
yes. And getting out of our own way. We're very good at getting into our own way. We're going to go for another break. When we come back, I'd like you to share with people your books and where people can find you. So please don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute. So, Rebecca, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Rebecca, how can people find you? And let's have that first.
Yeah. Well, my website is www.rebeccaeskeele.com. There's a lot of E's in there. It's REBECCAESKEELE.com. And on my website, I have some free gifts. You can check out my meditations and things. I also have a few free courses, small things that you can, listen to and see if it works for you and that kind of thing. And then I have more advanced things, memberships and paid courses and stuff like that. And you can also contact me. I do work with people actually all over the world right now. I also have a YouTube channel, lots of videos on my YouTube channel. And it's Rebecca Skeele. And you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook. The books are available on Amazon, and if you type in Rebecca Skeele, there are two of them that are on there. One of them is You Can Make It Heaven, How to Enrich Your Life with Abundance and Loving. And the other one is my newest, Manifest Your Sacred Ambition. That one is also on Kindle, and I recorded it. So if you are an audiobook person, which I know lots and lots of people are, you can get that audio version of it. But the Heaven book is just in paperback.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now, you've done a great deal with your spiritual development and growth. What's the dream for you? What now? If I could wave a magic wand, what would you like to be or do that's different, perhaps, to now?
Well, that's a lovely question. Thank you for that question. I think just more and more being able to reach more and more people. I wrote the books not to be a best-selling author, but to get the information out there. So perhaps something in the book would awaken or give them a new way of looking at their life or whatever. So I really want the information out there. And so that is probably the biggest thing. But the other biggest thing, and I might get a little emotional here when I talk about this, is that I really know that my soul is ready to go home.
Okay, that's quite a powerful thing to know. Quite a
Yes.
challenging.
Yeah. So that is what I'm doing. I'm going home.
Wow. I don't quite know what to say to that. Is that something that you're going to to actively find a way to do that for yourself, or are you going
Well,
to?
I already am. I'm on a spiritual path that takes you home.
Okay. And for
So,
people who are listening to this who may not understand, what you mean by that,
yeah,
I'm
go home to God because that's our home.
yeah.
And God got us all that is. It doesn't matter to me what you call it. You can call it Buddha, you can call it Allah, doesn't matter. And I know this. So that's what I'm doing. And it's a practice. And so that's really the focus of my life. And all the rest of this is sharing the blessing of that.
Thank you for sharing that with us and being honest about it. I really appreciate that. We're very proud to belong to an organization called B1G1, which is Buy One, Give One, which uses giving as part of the branding. And so I invite every one of my guests to choose one of 4 themes, and we donate at the end of the month to one of the projects under those themes. The organization vets everything very carefully. The projects are well run. Every penny goes to the projects, which are designed to help empower those people who've not been given the life chances that perhaps those who are listening have. The themes are clean water, education, health, and reforestation. Which of those 4 themes would you like me to donate to on your behalf?
Clean water. Water is life.
Thank you. And remember, just by listening to the show, that you are making a huge difference, because we give meals to the hungry based on the number of listeners. So spread the word, get people to download the app, which is the Brushwood Media Network app. It's free on Apple and Android. Or you can go and listen on the website, which is brushwoodmedianetwork.com. And you'll find all of the shows there, including this one, and you'll find the archive. You can also contact me through that. I'd love to hear what you think about the show, and also about what's going on in your life, and how I can help, and whether there are themes that you would like us to cover in the show. All sorts of competitions on there as well. Now, you can find Rebecca's books on Amazon. You can find mine. There are a huge range of books. Both of us are on YouTube. Do please go and subscribe. Take some action, because ultimately, these shows are designed to be the catalyst. You can listen to them and enjoy them for what they are. But if they actually help you take a small step towards finding your heaven on earth, then I've done my job, and my guests have helped me to do that. In the last couple of minutes of the show, Rebecca, have you got a final piece of advice, or a couple of pieces of advice that you'd give our listeners moving forward?
Well, if there's any spark of inspiration that you've received from this show or any of the shows that Gina has produced and brought forward, nurture it, nurture that spark. Let it, even if it's a small little thing, let it begin to catch fire and tend it, and it will take you where you want to go.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to leave people with is the message that, coming from a place of love is powerful. If you are a business leader, then you might think that love is pink and fluffy, but you can actually have far greater developmental conversations with your staff and hold them to a higher standard if they know that you care about them, and that you're doing so because you want them to grow and to develop their potential. If you're a parent, remember that unconditional love means that you want great things for your children. It doesn't mean that you're a doormat and you let kids get away with everything. It means that you put boundaries in place that are ones that will empower your child to grow, and to recognize that, you can do something about the conditioning. You don't have to provide the same conditioning that you had from your parents. You can make a difference. You can take children and give them the opportunity to be truly who they are, and not lose that as they grow older. And being a parent's a challenge, but ultimately, if you come from a place of love, which requires them to be the best version of them, in a loving way, you'll give your children the best start in life. So, Rebecca, thank you very much for joining me on the show. Thank you for coming and listening and joining me on the show. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Take care now. Bye-bye.